his co-author, no historian ever asked Henry to explain his investigation. If they had done so, I know that Henry would have answered their questions fully and completely. But the fact is, they did not. And that is the primary reason why Henry wanted to write this book, to firmly but politely correct the many errors made by these historians, who had written about Pearl Harbor, but had never had access to the people or the classified documents that Henry did. It was not until 3 years after the first publication of this book that Clausen's findings were confirmed by the National Security Agency, NSA. In a report released in 1995 and titled Pearl Harbor Revisited, United States Navy Communications Intelligence 1924 to 1941, Frederick D. Parker of the Center for Cryptologic History listed in his Appendix B the basic texts of intercepted decrypts of Japanese diplomatic messages, Magic Ultra, interspersed in chronological order with the OPNAV warnings sent by Washington to Kimmel. Parker summarizes the importance of these messages, saying, "These messages are so revealing that it is easy to lose sight of the fact that U.S. officials were often reading these messages at about the same time as the Japanese diplomats." The key question remains: did Kimmel ever believe the Japanese would attack Pearl Harbor? Apparently not. But why? After World War I, it was generally believed throughout the Navy that war with Japan would come sooner or later. For the next 2 decades, the Navy made its war plans and conducted exercises in the Pacific accordingly. But as Fred Parker of the NSA pointed out in his thoughtful report as regards the events of 1940 and 1941, the teachings of the Naval War College produced planners whose perceptions of Japanese naval capabilities and national intentions may have been seriously flawed by war planning doctrines which ruled out enemy intentions altogether as unreliable and subject to rapid change. Under these circumstances, communications intelligence producers who provided strategic warnings beginning in September 1941 that Japan was preparing for war should not have been surprised that their warnings were ignored until the 11th hour. To put it more bluntly, Kimmel, Short, and others badly underestimated the capabilities of Japan's armed forces and ignored evidence of its government's intentions until the disaster of Pearl Harbor had taken place. Parker's report also cited Kimmel's testimony at the congressional hearings on Pearl Harbor, when Kimmel said that he had no reason to suspect that the 6 Japanese carriers which had gone missing from the Japanese radio network had, in reality, been converted into a lost fleet during November. Parker refutes Kimmel, writing, "In fact, before the November 17 procedure change, it was clear that these carriers had been assigned to a separate organization, the 1st Air Fleet. However, neither Com-16, Corregidor, nor Layton, Kimmel's chief of intelligence, picked this up, though it was reported by Com-14 in Hawaii on 6 November. Kimmel's failure to appreciate the possible existence of a new Japanese carrier fleet is put into its proper context by Gordon Prang in his best-selling At Dawn We Slept, which I edited, when Prang quotes a conversation between Kimmel and his Fleet War Plans officer, Captain Charles E. Sock McMorris, a week before the Japanese attack. The conversation can also be found in the Pearl Harbor hearings. During a general discussion about American strategy in the Pacific, Kimmel had just been advised by one of his officers that the Japanese had the capability to attack Pearl Harbor by air. Capability, yes, conceded Kimmel, but possibility? Kimmel turned to his Fleet War Plans officer. "What do you think about the prospects of a Japanese air attack?" he asked McMorris. "None. Absolutely none," replied McMorris.